Ndani nikiingia tu anachukua anaweka wa kwenye gari anachukua anaweka iwe jikoni varandani anachukua anaweka wa doze anachukua anaweka ndani Dar es Salaam joto toale soji pepe oya Kongo joto toale soji pepe oye Mose Kunambi pepe Ricardo Momo pepe oya Mama Dangote pepe ndo nifungwe pepe chu pepe chu pepe ni chu pepe chu
Joseph Bertier Kaya Musha Fukama Diamond Fukama Quadra Fukama
Personally Personally, I rock your body. I promise you go home, you won't tell daddy. I give it to you like you never had it. Screaming, churching, like speaking Chinese. Now waiting me this, back a boom boom. Now waiting I see Zaga, cause she know one me. She talks so she know one me. I know go lie, the things within my mind. When I see you dancing, girl, you got me high. And if you wanna try, begin good day tonight. Cause I'm in the mood. As long as you're feeling the groove, I deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. I go deal with you. Personally, professionally, I see what you're doing intentionally. Get me want it physically, so give it to me radically. Emotionally, psychologically, you're turning me on biologically, sexually, dramatically. And she talks so she know what I know go lie, the things within my mind. When I see you dancing, girl, you got me high. And if you wanna try, begin good day tonight. Cause I'm in the mood. As long as you're feeling the groove, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. I go deal with you. Yeah, exceptionally. The reason is spiritually. Money speaking so drastically, magically, internationally. Abatically. Grammar, now for dictionary. Saga, cause she know one me. She talks so she know one me. I know go lie, the things within my mind. When I see you dancing, girl, you got me high. And if you wanna try, begin good day tonight. Cause I'm in the mood. As long as you're feeling the groove, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you.
Baby, follow my command, like zombie. Go down on me, oh, with your coca body. Follow my command, like zombie. Go down on me, oh, with your coca body. Cause this your milky for front enough for me. Hold on for me, I no go do me corny. And if you're milky na fighty, I saw me to look. Gelato honey, oh baby, smile, deep. Baby, gonna waka waka when you enter Malicha. Baby, gonna will you give me sugar? Wala. Macho Mona Lisa, 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 Macho Mona Lisa.
Mona Lisa, I go sweep you off your feet. What so she said make some time for me, See for this let me and you tap like hush for me. We walking next there, please show them your best. Baby, hope you know you light to my day. Girl, you know you're all that I need. Give me your love, you can't run away. I can't deny. One back of man, them one come try. But my love just takes you high. All them I talk about you and I. Nobody listen to them loud. I get butterflies when I see ya. Oh yeah. If I'm in love, it's for a reason. Oh yeah.
Gonna waka when you enter Malicha. Baby, gonna will you give me sugar? Wala. Macho Mona Lisa, 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 Macho Mona Lisa. Yeah.
Classic.
Back then when I was a new youngin', Charlie, you were tryna run on me. I've been going on my own. I've been doing things unknown. It's the day one, you running right back. Say the drama, you running off track. It's a one life, you tell me one life. One time, you tell me one time. Open your eyes, baby. Can you be wise, cause I'm a pride, baby. I'm on the way, I'm on the run, baby. Leave me alone, take it back now. I put you on it. Say you want chance to hold it on me. I feel I hold it back. Turn you right around, take it my way. So tell me what you need from me now. I know what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages now. Say, tell me what you need from me now. I know what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages, no more damages. Back then when I was a baby girl, I was yours and you were my world. Tell me what you wanna do for me now. Take you down and I will hold you to run my race, cause you run it right there. Run my race, cause you take it right there. I've been down, I've been running right there. I've been out, could you take it back there? Pull up tonight, I might be risky. Buy me stomach, forget the whiskey. But you still wanna get back with me. You tryna be the one and deal with. Don't got my phone, you're not in my band. You missed the waiting at the one chance. I live my life, don't need you with me. Yeah. So tell me what you need from me now. I know what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages now. So tell me what you need from me now. You know where I need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages, no. So tell me what you need from me now. I know what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages now. So tell me what you need from me now. I know what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. damages. No, no, no more damages.
Say make a withdraw money. Oh, no good and great. Make a carry it.
Bodily ritual. We paint in red. This is our ritual. We do it without fail. We remain faithful. The fountain of our color is deep, mystique. We keep it flowing even when we sleep. We paint in red. As we cleanse, connecting with our bodies, we paint with the moon, glowing through every shine. Every time we bleed, a new life begins. We paint in red, even when our colors spill on the wrong canvas. Even when we cannot afford a canvas, we paint in red. Even when our lips are tied so we cannot share the pride of our paintings. Even when our feet are hurting from seeking wisdom behind our art, or when they lie and expect us to cry, we paint in red. Because we believe in the ritual. We paint in red, even when our ritual is shamed, even when they fear this ritual to be named. We paint in red, paint our bodies every moon, and glow through every shine. We rise and paint in red to express desire, love, passion, and our fire. We paint in red, we celebrate our flow, our colors, for we are a work of art. We are women, healthy, beautiful, and alive.
Yeah, bullet make I go crazy. I'ma get see you sure for me. Say make I withdraw money. Oh, no good and great. Make I carry.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Menstrual Health Symposium 2023, brought to you by UNFPA East and Southern Africa and the Africa Coalition on Menstrual Health, better known as ACMH. First off, let's make some noise for our opening entertainment from Safro Maramba Band and Zahura. Weren't they just amazing? My name is Stephanie Ndlovu, and this is Daniel Hansen. Together, it is our honor to be your program director for the next 2 days.
That's right, Stephanie, and thank you and welcome. The goal of this symposium is to celebrate local voices and grassroots initiatives across Africa that are promoting menstrual health through integrated and cross-sectoral policy and pragmatic responses. And we have many outstanding speakers coming up, so make yourselves comfortable because you do not want to miss a moment of this.
Yes, absolutely. Now, just to let you know, we had an overwhelming response to this symposium, and the meeting may well reach its maximum capacity. So if any of your colleagues cannot get into the meeting for any reason, please tell them that they can watch the live stream on UNFPA SA's YouTube channel. The link will be posted in the chat, so please forward that link to anyone who might need it. I should also tell you that in order to keep the meeting running smoothly, participants will not be able to unmute themselves. But we still want to hear from you, so please type your comments and questions in the chat and we'll make sure they are fed through to the relevant speakers. Let's give that a try right now, shall we? Yeah. Please send us a short greeting in the chat and tell us where in the world you're watching from. We would love to hear from you.
Yes, Stephanie. We also have interpretation available in English, French, and Portuguese. So if you need any translation services, please click the interpretation button in Zoom and select the language you want to hear. And please do tag us on social media at UNFPA SRO using the hashtag Menstrual Justice, African Menstrual Health, and MH Symposium 2023.
Now, time is tight, so let's kick off our opening ceremony with some words of welcome from Dr. Mashela Mohaila Mohabodi, lead for Africa Coalition on Menstrual Health Products, Standards and Value Chain. And then we'll hear from Lydia Sigomo, Regional Director, UNFPA East and Southern Africa. Dr. Mashela and Lydia, we look forward to your comments.
I could make you to shout, pum, 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 pum. Me, I know to like you for my, so now you I want to show my mama, cause I'ma put you in a brand new bima. She go like be my shima.
On behalf of Africa Coalition Menstrual Health, the organization comprising of members of the community, grassroots, government departments, young people, private sector, public sector, and menstrual health practitioners, we would like to welcome you to the 2023 Africa Coalition Symposium. Ladies and gentlemen, we would recall that during the Africa Coalition 2021, the call to action was very unapologetic about tackling issues surrounding menstrual health, with a major emphasis on the following key thematic areas. In no particular order, we're starting with human rights. Menstruation is a human right issue. And next to it is the humanitarian settings. Periods do not stop because of pandemics, wars, or natural disasters. Access to period products is every menstruator's right, irrespective of the environment they find themselves under. And on products, the availability of different menstrual health products is the driving force in ensuring that no one is left behind. From the product choices to ensuring inclusivity and addressing cultural and taboos. Education, the need to openly have a menstrual health conversation and educate grassroots organizations about the choices and rights they have surrounding this naturally occurring process. This cannot be stressed enough. Additionally, the integration of menstrual health into the mainstream school curriculum should be given first priority. And on the standards, whilst the advocacy to improve on access to menstrual health products, the development of standards for such products is of paramount importance, whilst offering the solutions. And on waste management, where sustainable products are available, they should be made accessible widely whilst preserving the environment. And seven but not least, the marginalized groups, the development of policies and products should at all times be considerate and inclusive for the marginalized groups, such as persons with disabilities. The products and wash facilities should accommodate those who menstruate in such groups to promote equality in menstrual health. And on research and monitoring and evaluation and learning, the impact analysis should be measured at all times so as to determine if their programs and policies on menstrual health are impactful and to determine areas that will require improvement. Research plays an integral part in the determination of areas that require attention to ensure that the purpose of the program is achieved. All the key thematic areas mentioned above are the cornerstones to ensure that integration is achieved in menstrual health space. This year, the call to action has transformed, and we look forward to a 2-day symposium inspired by commitments made by Africa Coalition Menstrual Health during the 2021 Symposium, which states, we recommit to holding the next symposium in 2023 to review progress made on frameworks and research and share the successes and challenges and lessons learned. To give an overview of the journey traveled thus far, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ms. Lydia Zigomo, the Regional Director East and Southern African region, United Nations Population Fund, as she unpacks the menstrual hygiene footprints made by the UNFPA, ACMH, and other key stakeholders. Ms. Zigom, the audience is all yours. Ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Mashela. Honorable Mohammed Saeed Farah, Secretary General, Ministry of National Education and Civic Promotion, Chad. Honorable Emma Theophilus, Deputy Minister of Information, Communication and Technology, Namibia. Honorable Gloria Owoba, Senator for Women, Republic of Kenya. Joeria Namulondo, Advocacy Officer, Youth Coalition for Sexual and Reproductive Rights, Uganda. Distinguished guests, speakers, moderators, and participants, good afternoon. I'm excited that we're able to convene, granted virtually, for the third Africa Menstrual Health Symposium. As committed to at the 2021 Symposium, this gathering will track the implementation of the renewed call to action. We have seen noteworthy progress since the inaugural 2018 Menstrual Health Symposium, which resulted in an over 600-member-strong Africa Menstrual Health Coalition. The coalition has rapidly emerged as a renowned convener of a committed and dynamic community of menstrual health practitioners from private, academic, civil, and public sectors. The collective effort of the coalition has elevated the discussion on menstrual health beyond the more recognized focus on hygiene and wash, bringing to center stage conversations on human rights, reproductive justice, dignity, well-being, gender equality, life course, and multi-sectoral approaches to the core of menstrual health through local voices and grassroots initiatives. Today is an occasion to celebrate our critical and collective achievements. We continue to tackle menstrual stigma, shame, misinformation, and myths, ensuring that menstrual health is not the silent issue it used to be. Menstrual health literacy has been an important avenue for girls and boys too, in and outside of school and in communities at large, to learn about menstruation as a normal biological process and broader sexual reproductive health and rights issues from a less controversial angle. We have made a measurable difference here. However, as we all know, information alone is not enough. Women, girls, and people who menstruate also require access to climate-friendly menstrual products and services to manage their menses with dignity and respect, free from exploitation and violence, and access to critical medical attention for menstrual irregularities and menstrual disorders. The Africa Coalition has done more impressive work in highlighting the issue of period poverty, which remains prevalent. Indeed, soon after the 2018 Symposium, we saw a number of countries making inroads around tax exemptions and free products to underserved girls. Throughout the next 2 days, we'll get an opportunity to hear about country experiences, local voices, and grassroots initiatives to improve access to menstrual health information, products, and services in all contexts, including humanitarian. Periods don't stop for humanitarian crisis, and it remains key that we ensure menstrual information, products, and services are a standard component of dignity kits, as well as access to water and safe sanitation in these situations. Colleagues and friends, while there is good progress, a lot more still needs to be done. Going forward, through our collective collaborative partnerships and championed by the African Coalition for Menstrual Health, we have the opportunity to leverage our coordinated efforts to ensure that the commendable progress already made is consolidated, scaled up, and accelerated. From a UNFPA perspective, allow me to mention a few areas that need our attention. First, The integration of menstrual health within efforts to ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health and rights across the full life cycle of girls, women, and all people who menstruate. This includes promoting menstrual health as part of universal health coverage, especially through primary health care. Second, robust and standardized empirical data, information, and evidence to improve policy, financing, and delivery of interventions to improve menstrual health and its linkages with education, gender equality, sexual and reproductive health, mental health, and economic and social empowerment need to be generated. Third, equity, rights, and justice. We must leave no one behind. This means addressing the menstrual health needs of all those who menstruate, including persons with disabilities, people living with HIV, transgender and gender non-binary persons, sex workers, prisoners, injecting drug users, survivors of female genital mutilation. All this requires our partnerships to grow and our attitudes and mindsets to change. We cannot achieve universal sexual and reproductive health and rights without achieving universal access to menstrual education, information, products, and services. Let me end by stating, UNFPA is committed that every woman, girl, and person who menstruates is supported to experience healthy menstruation and is able to manage their menstruation with confidence and comfort, with dignity and pride, so that they can fully be able to participate in society and achieve their full potential and live a productive and healthy life. I look forward to the informative sessions that follow and the rest of this symposium. And again, welcome. Back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Dr. Sheila and Lydia. What a great way to start off proceedings. Moving right along, please welcome our next speaker, Honorable Mahmoud Said Farah, Secretary General, Ministry of National Education and Civic Promotion, Chad.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour, chers amis et chers partenaires techniques et financiers. Je m'appelle Mohamed Saïd Farah, je suis le secrétaire général du ministère de l'Éducation nationale et de la promotion civique du Tchad. Et c'est à ce titre donc que j'interviens à la présente rencontre qui pour nous est une rencontre de grande valeur, de grande envergure, parce que ça nous permet de communiquer avec autrui, ça nous permet de témoigner de ce que nous vivons dans notre pays, mais surtout ça nous permet de nous impliquer en tant que structure éducative dans la prise en main et surtout dans l'implication des filles et des femmes dans le développement et de leur présence dans nos écoles. Je voudrais dire que l'éducation à la vie et à la santé de reproduction existe chez nous depuis pratiquement une dizaine d'années parce que, au-delà de ce que nous avons commencé ces derniers temps, nous avions eu des programmes d'éducation à la vie familiale et en matière de population à l'école qui, à mon avis, est le dévancier de l'éducation à la vie et à la santé de reproduction. Aujourd'hui, les questions relatives à la santé des Tchadiens, à la santé des élèves, mais surtout à la santé des filles et des femmes, nous préoccupent au plus haut niveau. Vous prenez par exemple notre curricula, aujourd'hui intègre parfaitement, n'est-ce pas, tout ce qui est relatif à la santé de la femme, à la santé de l'homme et surtout à la prise en charge de la fille dans son ensemble. Vous savez que notre pays regorge de jeunes, que ce soit des filles, que ce soit des garçons. Et donc avec les filles et les garçons, tant qu'on ne les associe pas, n'est-ce pas, dans la prise en main de leur avenir à eux, évidemment, nous ne pouvons pas réussir. C'est donc à partir d'aujourd'hui et de maintenant que nous sommes en train de les responsabiliser pour qu'ils sachent que l'éducation à la santé, l'éducation à la vie, l'éducation à la santé de reproduction, c'est d'abord leur affaire à eux. On leur parle à l'école, on leur parle dans la rue, on leur parle dans tous les endroits où on peut transmettre ces messages. Et aujourd'hui, quand vous allez dans nos écoles, n'est-ce pas, les toilettes, par exemple, sont séparées parce que ça fait partie du programme de prise en main de nos élèves. Les kits de dignité, aujourd'hui, les filles n'ont aucune honte, n'est-ce pas, à venir à l'école parce que elles prennent en charge, n'est-ce pas, leur cycle menstruel, elles prennent en charge leur hygiène et elles savent que tout cela ne peut pas les empêcher d'aller à l'école parce que non seulement elles savent utiliser les kits d'hygiène, mais aussi de les fabriquer. Et je peux témoigner aujourd'hui que dans des régions comme le Logone oriental, ou le lac où particulièrement je m'y suis rendu, j'ai vu que les filles, grâce à leur machine, elles peuvent fabriquer elles-mêmes leur kit de dignité. Elles fabriquent elles-mêmes tout ce qui est relatif à leur hygiène menstruelle. Et donc de ce côté-là, il n'y a plus d'obstacle. Et grâce à l'UNFPA, par exemple, nous avons mis en place le projet AGAP. L'acronyme AGAP, ça veut dire briser les barrières qui empêchent les filles à l'école. Et parmi les barrières qu'on a constatées, il y a également cette question de la santé, de la reproduction, cette question d'hygiène qu'on a pris en main et aujourd'hui, nous avons réussi, grâce à cet appui-là, grâce à ce programme, de faire en sorte que les filles comprennent l'intérêt de l'école, mais c'est surtout de casser toutes ces barrières-là qui se dressent et qui, pour les unes, sont dans les mentalités. Dans cette campagne que nous menons dans les communautés et dans tous les endroits où il est possible de parler aux femmes et aux hommes, surtout aux parents, qu'ils soient les parents paternels ou les parents maternels, nous avons créé un dialogue, un espace de dialogue. Et cet espace de dialogue, c'est pour sensibiliser les parents dans leur ensemble, pour qu'ils sachent que une fille peut avoir son cycle menstruel de manière précoce. Et donc, ce n'est pas parce que la fille a déjà son cycle menstruel qu'on peut la considérer comme une femme et donc la donner en mariage. Non. Nous avons une loi ici, n'est-ce pas, qui exige que la fille ne soit mariée que après 18 ans. Et donc, la fille peut avoir son cycle menstruel à 13 ans. Il y en a qui peuvent avoir leur cycle menstruel à 14 ans, peut-être moins. Et donc les parents, nous leur disons attention. Une fille, c'est d'abord son âge. Il faut qu'elle arrive à cet âge X. Deuxièmement, le cycle menstruel n'est pas un élément à prendre en charge pour envoyer une fille en mariage. D'abord, lorsque la fille a son cycle menstruel, il faut lui apprendre déjà à se prendre en charge sur le plan hygiénique. Vous savez, quand la fille, elle n'a pas l'âge requis et que les cycles menstruels arrivent, parfois elles sont paniquées, parfois elles sont désemparées, parfois elles ne comprennent pas ce qui leur arrive. Donc, les parents doivent dialoguer, les parents doivent échanger, les parents doivent savoir dire à leurs enfants, attention, quand vous avez votre cycle menstruel, vous devez vous comporter de cette manière. Avoir son cycle menstruel, ce n'est pas une honte. L'hygiène doit être de mise, mais surtout de ne pas confondre une femme à envoyer au mariage avec la fille qui a son cycle menstruel. Et donc, ce message-là, il est implémenté, il est dit, comme je dis, dans les mosquées, dans les lieux de rassemblement des personnes, dans les endroits où il est susceptible, où il est possible plutôt de transmettre un message. Nous disons aux parents, attention, ne confondez pas entre une fille qui a son cycle menstruel, qui peut même arriver de manière précoce, 11 ans, 12 ans, peut-être. Les spécialistes le savent. Et donc, avoir son cycle menstruel n'est pas équivalent à envoyer la fille en mariage. Et ça, nous le disons, nous le répétons, et aujourd'hui, les parents commencent à comprendre que, effectivement, ce message est en train de porter. Je voudrais simplement rappeler aussi à vous, chers participants à la rencontre, que le Tchad est l'un des pays qui reçoivent beaucoup de réfugiés. Si je prends seulement le cas de ceux qui sont arrivés depuis avril, on en a reçu presque 90 000. Et c'est le système des Nations Unies, hein, c'est pas nos statistiques à nous, c'est les statistiques du système des Nations Unies, du HCR, et qui relèvent que 90 000 nouveaux réfugiés sont arrivés. Et dans le lot de ces réfugiés, il y a des filles, il y a des femmes, il y a de jeunes filles. Ces personnes-là sont traumatisées pour ce qu'ils ont vécu. Et donc, quand ils arrivent chez nous, ça constitue un poids de taille, parce qu'il nous faut construire des écoles ou faire des places aux gens qui viennent. Il nous faut de l'espace et de la terre pour que ces gens-là, demain, la saison de pluie est en train d'arriver, pour qu'ils cultivent la terre. On sent la pression sur l'environnement, parce qu'il leur faut de l'espace. On sent également la pression sur les populations autochtones. N'oubliez pas que le Tchad est l'un des pays qui a intégré, n'est-ce pas, dans son système de formation, tous les réfugiés. Aujourd'hui, les réfugiés soudanais, centrafricains, nigériens, qui sont actuellement dans la zone du bassin du lac, étudient sur le curriculum tchadien. Et ils ont intégré parfaitement ces curriculums-là pour que demain, et nous le souhaitons pour eux, qu'ils repartent chez eux ayant appris quelque chose d'assez important dans notre pays, parce que ils sont comme nous, nos enfants. Aujourd'hui, ils peuvent aller à l'université. Ils peuvent aller dans les grandes écoles. N'est-ce pas? Nous organisons des examens dans les camps de réfugiés. Et nous sommes en train de réfléchir même avec le HCR sur le e-learning pour ouvrir, par exemple, un espace de connexion dans les camps de réfugiés. Ça veut dire que pour nous, les réfugiés, c'est une richesse. Ce n'est pas une charge. C'est une richesse parce que quand ils viennent chez nous, n'est-ce pas, notre fraternité se renforce. Et nous ne sommes pas, n'est-ce pas, contre qui que ce soit. Nous voulons que ces frères-là viennent parce que moi, j'ai toujours eu à le dire. Le Tchad a connu la guerre. Le Tchad a connu les réfugiés. Le Tchad connaît le prix de la paix. C'est pourquoi nous faisons en sorte que nous renvoyons l'ascenseur à ceux de nos frères qui ont fui leur pays à cause de l'insécurité qui sévit là-bas. Vous savez, dans les années 80, les Tchadiens sont allés au Cameroun pour se réfugier. Ils sont allés au Nigeria. Ils sont allés au Niger. Ils sont allés au Soudan. Ils sont allés en RCA. Et aujourd'hui, nous avons un devoir de renvoyer l'ascenseur à nos frères qui ont fui la guerre. Donc, j'ai décrit cette situation-là pour rassurer la communauté internationale, pour rassurer la communauté éducative que le Tchad reste ouvert. Alors, pour revenir un peu à ce que je disais avant de conclure mes propos, nous sommes en train d'engager, n'est-ce pas, toute la communauté éducative, l'État, les écoles, les parents, pour que la prise en charge de la santé, de la reproduction, de l'hygiène corporelle, de la santé tout court, mais surtout de l'implication effective des filles et des femmes dans leur éducation, que ce soit une éducation au niveau élémentaire, au niveau secondaire ou au niveau supérieur. Je voudrais donc vous remercier de m'avoir entendu, mais surtout de savoir que le Tchad s'est inscrit inexorablement dans le chemin du progrès, n'est-ce pas, dans le chemin de la prise en charge des filles et des femmes, parce que quand vous avez 52% de personnes, vous ne pouvez pas les ignorer. Et nous, on a déjà intégré tout ça, n'est-ce pas, dans ce que nous faisons. Et je voulais terminer en vous demandant de nous aider. On a besoin d'être aidés, on a besoin d'être appuyés. Et nous sommes toujours prêts à témoigner de ce que nous vivons. N'hésitez pas à nous demander de venir témoigner. N'hésitez pas à nous demander de venir nous impliquer, n'est-ce pas, dans ce vaste chantier, n'est-ce pas, de prise en main et surtout de l'éducation à la vie et à la santé de reproduction, parce que c'est un challenge, parce que c'est pas quelque chose qui va être réussi aujourd'hui ou demain, c'est le combat de tous les jours. Et nous, on est inscrits aujourd'hui dans ce travail pour arriver jusqu'au progrès. Nous, on le fera, nos enfants le feront, nos petits-enfants également le feront, parce que tant que les filles et les femmes ne sont pas intégrées entièrement, collectivement, si elles ne sont pas intégrées, on ne peut pas réussir du tout. Donc, merci beaucoup de m'avoir écouté. Merci d'avoir retenu quelque chose de ce que j'ai dit, mais surtout, c'est un engagement du gouvernement de la République du Tchad, n'est-ce pas, d'aller le plus loin possible dans la prise en main de la santé de la vie, de la santé de la reproduction de tous nos parents, de tous nos filles, de tous nos enfants. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
When I take the last slice of pastry, now I'm on the run. Loving you till kingdom come, but you drive me crazy. Send someone, still my billboard baby.
Thank you for those thoughts, Honorable Mahmoud. Now let's give a warm welcome to our next speaker, Honorable Emma Theophilus, Deputy Minister of Information, Communication and Technology, Namibia. Honorable Emma, we look forward to your comments.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the symposium this afternoon. Director of Proceedings, our moderator Stephanie, my fellow speakers, Honorable Gloria Oroba, Senator for Women in the Republic of Kenya, Ms. Joweria Namulondo, Advocacy Officer for the Youth Coalition for Sexual and Reproductive Rights in Uganda, Ms. Lydia Sigomo, our Regional Director for UNFPA East and Southern Africa, all other UNFPA representatives present, including those of my home country of Namibia, Dr. Mashela Mogala Mokhabudi, lead of the Africa Coalition on Menstrual Health Products, Standards and Value Chain, and Katisha Menstrual Cup, South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you and greetings from the capital city of the land of the brave, Namibia, the city of Windhoek. It is indeed my pleasure for me to address you this afternoon at this Africa Menstrual Health Symposium 2023 under the theme Achieving Menstrual Justice through Grassroots and Multi-Sectoral Approaches. Menstrual justice is a matter of health, equity, and equality. So what is menstrual justice? But in order for me to contextually and clearly answer this very important question, let us quickly talk about menstrual injustice. Menstrual injustice is the oppression of menstruators, women, girls, and other persons simply because their bodies are going through a natural, uncontrollable action of menstruation. The narrative of menstruation born out of supposed cultural, religious, and all other forms of beliefs is that it is taboo and shameful, and that menstruators are dirty, impure, and even dangerous in some instances. People over time have internalized this narrative and are reluctant to publicly discuss menstruation. Some menstruators suffer heavy bleeding and pain that comes with this natural cycle of reproduction. Society expects menstruators to be solely and invisibly responsible for their menstruation without recognizing it as a part of the necessary reproductive health life cycle. Menstruators suffer economic disadvantage. They also suffer health disadvantages due to inadequate health research. But when these very same menstruators produce wanted babies, society celebrates them all of a sudden at the aspect of new life in this world without recognizing the entire journey that brought this offspring into the world. It all started at the very beginning of a menstruating woman. Therefore, menstrual justice is the ability for society to take care of menstruators and treat them with dignity from all levels of institutions, from the very household that we live in to the highest policy in government. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 3 years as a member of parliament and a government representative, I had to continue my work in the SRHR space because we all know that the world was in a health crisis. And in terms of crises, and especially in times of crises, women and girls suffer the most and bear the worst effects of any crisis. This can be confirmed for all the crises the world has ever witnessed. The evidence is there for everyone to see. So what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic? We saw an increase in teenage pregnancies. We saw an increase in HIV and AIDS infections among young people, and surely period poverty worsened. Access to menstrual products and education became a challenge As the economies of our countries became constrained, and even those who could stretch a dollar to cater for the needs of menstruators started seeing it as an option and not the necessity that it is, because menstruation is not an option. Menstrual health is a necessity. As a legislator, I then saw it fit to table a motion in the National Assembly of Namibia in 2021 to ask for the removal of tax on all sanitary pads to address this as a policy intervention. I am proud to say that as of 2023, Namibia is one step closer to providing free sanitary products by removing the pink tax. This is, however, not just a policy issue alone. There still exists negative narratives that I spoke about earlier that harm women and girls that menstruate. For instance, young girls' lives who are at the intersection of gender and age are in danger when those who subject them to sexual abuse realize that these very girls menstruating, that they can and will most likely fall pregnant and will subject them to unwanted methods in order to conceal the abuse for longer. Moreover, amongst many others, these girls are disadvantaged by menstrual injustice that subjects schoolgirls to the indignity of limited bathroom access. We need to challenge these injustices in our public policies, in our institutions of work, in our institutions of learning, and the cultural representations and any other forms or norms that have a structural oppression of women and girls as a modus operandi of oppressional power. Ladies and gentlemen, menstruation is not just a women's or girls' issue. It is a human rights issue. We need to go beyond and above a donations and aid for menstrual health products to our women and girls in our society. This health necessity needs and must be mainstreamed into health services all over Africa. Think of women and girls in conflict and crisis situations. Think of women and girls burdened by poverty and lack. All of us, wherever we are, in whatever capacity we serve, need to contribute to making these hygiene products available and accessible. Education and information about menstruation needs to be understood, and challenging the narratives that menstruation is nothing but a beautiful start of the cycle of our reproductive health and our cycle of life. I hope positive deliberations and positive solutions to come from this symposium, and I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Honorable Emma. We appreciate your input. Our next speaker is Honorable Gloria Owoba, Senator for Women, Republic of Kenya. Over to you, Senator.
Greetings from Nairobi. I would like to recognize the presence of my fellow keynote speakers, Mahatma Farah, Secretary General, Ministry of National Education and Civic Promotion in Chad, Honorable Emma Theophilus, the Deputy Minister of Information, Communication and Technology in Namibia, and we have Ms. Yoweria Namulondo, Advocacy Officer, Youth Coalition for Sexual and Reproductive Rights in Uganda. Definitely Dr. Mashela from Lead Africa Coalition on Menstrual Health Products, Standards and Value Chain from South Africa. And the moderators, all of UNFPA members, and all the guests who are logged in to this very informative session. Greetings from Nairobi, and thank you for having me today as one of the keynote speakers. I am delighted to join in from Nairobi, Kenya, which is the country that basically where we put menstrual hygiene on the platform just a couple of weeks ago. I had my period when I was in the chambers, and it caused quite a commotion. I was kicked out, and I think it's time that we all as players, stop having conversations and start acting. And that is where I want to begin my conversation. You know that in Kenya, we have our menstrual hygiene management policy. And we are one of the first countries in Africa that actually took note of the level of period poverty and what it means to be an African woman, an African girl, and manage your menstruation around the situations that, that you are in. And the menstrual hygiene management policy from Kenya is it's a guideline for some of us who are in parliament for legislation. This year's theme on menstrual This year's theme of menstrual hygiene is about commitment. We are committed. So I'd like to pose this challenge to everybody that is logged in. What are you committed to? What are you committed to doing in terms of being a change maker? I am committed to legislation. I am committed to ensure that we have the policy, we have the guidelines, but we must legislate. We must put it into law. We must make sure that everything that we have been talking about for the last 20, 25, 30 years actually is put into place. We are talking about how to ensure that we have access of sanitary towels, ensuring that every schoolgirl, every woman in every corner of wherever they are in Africa can be able to manage their periods, their menstruation with dignity. And I want to legislate that. I'm legislating that. And I think that in our own little spaces, you might not be a legislator, but in your own space, in your small office, in your big office, in your big organization or institution, what is it that you can commit to if not legislation? We have seen the loud advocacy on, menstrual equity. Finally, in 2023, we can have billboards up to talk about menstruation because we are normalizing. There is nothing wrong with menstruation, but we have to shout about it. We have to get our male allies. I'm so excited to see so many male allies log in onto this very informative forum. And the advocacy is not just talking about the negatives, but we have had wins. We have actually conquered on some levels. Look at the technology that we are introducing in terms of managing menstruation, in terms of ensuring that even the products that we're using are climate friendly, are environment friendly. Look at the space of reusable or rewashable sanitary towels. What can you commit to in that space as you try to be a change maker? And I want to say this, I'm glad that my partners, most of my partners, everybody that's logged in is my partner because in one way or another, we have interacted. I'm glad that UNFPA understands that it's not just about access to sanitary towels. It's about the education around managing menstruation. It's about what do we want our male allies to do? What do we want our fathers, our brothers to come on board and help us? When I'm having my period in parliament, what am I expecting of my colleagues? Of course, I don't expect to be kicked out. So you can be sure that, the precedent of having me kicked out in parliament is going to change because menstruation is normal. But I want to pose a challenge to everybody that you might be in your corner, you might be small, you might be big, but you have the ability to influence change. You have the ability to pick up the menstrual hygiene policy from wherever you are and pick one thing to champion. And I think for this year, as we are having these conversations, let's think about committing to 3 things. 1, legislation. Without legislation, we cannot institute, we cannot force industry players, we cannot force organizations, institutions, governments, and international community to do the right thing. So we must legislate. We must make menstrual hygiene management part of our constitutions, part of our legal frameworks in everywhere that we come from Namibia all the way to Eritrea, if they are locked on. We have to legislate around menstruation so that we can help institute the policies. The second thing that I want us to commit to is that we have to shout about it until there's no reason to shout anymore, until every girl has access to products to manage their periods. We have to shout about it. We have to speak of all the ills, the taboos around what's going on so that we can we can break those barriers that are keeping our girls out of school. In Kenya right now, it has become normal to talk about menstruation since the incident that happened in parliament. It has become normal for someone to joke around, are you able to travel, or is it that you're having period cramps, because of the fact that we are normalizing the conversation. So I want us to go out and commit into advocacy and ensure that, you know, you don't look at it as a component of, by the way, we are just advocating. No, advocacy is very important on the same. Put up billboards about menstruation. Shout about ensuring that you know, the products that are available are healthy and they are easy to use, and there's sensitization around provision of the same. And finally, I want us to commit that in our own spaces, we can be change makers to ensure that we provide, give access. If you're able to buy 1 or 2 extra sanitary towels, and you're in the supermarket or wherever, and you can take 2 or 3 products to give to a vulnerable girl or woman, you know, especially our girls in school, so that we can keep them in school. I want us to commit to that, because without this commitment, then we are going to be having conferences and talking about menstruation, but we are not going to be change makers. And I would love for us to be change makers. Thank you so much, UNFPA, for this opportunity. Thank you so much for the over 300 people that are logged in on, for the support that you have given online. And I want to say this, that it was a difficult day being kicked out of chambers for having my period, but I learned a lot. And I hope that we can, you know, use our own experiences to amplify the message. And I hope that at the end of this 2-day engagement, that, you know, we can be able to institute change in the different forums that we have. And finally, I'd like to take a moment to remember the 14-year-old girl from Kenya, Jacqueline Chepngeno, who in 2019 actually committed suicide because of being shamed by her class teacher. And let this be a reflecting moment, because the worst that could happen is that you can have a 14-year-old girl, out of the shaming, out of the lack of access to the sanitary towels, it's death. It's that serious. And I would like for us in every single way between now and May 28th, to take a moment every day to reflect on the 14-year-old girl who actually took her own life because of not being able to manage her period, and the shame that came with it. And let's remember that what we are trying to achieve is to ensure that we have girls and women menstruate with dignity and not be able to miss out on life because of a natural occurrence such as menstruation. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Gloria. Some really valuable comments there. Our final speaker for this opening session is Joweria Namulondo, Advocacy Officer, Youth Coalition for Sexual and Reproductive Rights. Joweria, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, moderator. Dear distinguished delegates, participants, and guests in all your dignitaries, I am very much honored to present this keynote speech on behalf of young people, not only from Uganda, but from Africa at large. As many speakers have alluded to it, menstrual health is really a human right. And yet we know that opportunity, shame, stigma, and misinformation surrounding menstrual health continues to deprive girls, women, and other menstruating people of these fundamental human rights. Indeed, we all agree that achieving menstrual health is still a far-fetched issue for many millions of girls and women. For example, in Uganda, the Ministry of Education and Sport issued a situation analysis in 2020, and it revealed that menstruating girls or girls in reproductive age miss like 8 days per month, which translates to 24 days per year due to menstrual health challenges. And it's not only because of lack of facts, but menstrual health challenges along a spectrum. This has a far-reaching implication as many girls are left behind and they are unable to harness their potential just because of the fact that they are girls and they menstruate. In my primary school, growing up, but it was really very scanty and it was really not comprehensive. Even information about menstrual disorders was not really given. The information I received from some of my peers was that having, for example, heavy periods or very painful periods is normal, and the myths that come around with it that you have to first give birth, then you will be okay. So this contained misinformation is a continuation to normalize menstrual health disorders, for example. And it's indeed unfortunate that it's still the case for many girls across the continent. Period poverty is real, and it's really an impediment to girls' access to education, to their dignity, to health, to employment, which is really unfortunate because they are unable to manage their periods. So this continued vulnerability for girls limits them from menstruating with dignity, and sometimes they have to trade their bodies because of menstrual products, in exchange for menstrual products. I think one of the speakers earlier spoke about it, that during COVID-19 pandemic, so many young girls got pregnant, and one of the contributors was transactional sex for pads. So I think you all agree with me that women and girls and other menstruating people do not really have to be put on the spotlight to choose between food and menstrual products. It's really long at all levels. I acknowledge the fact that civil society organizations and other state actors, government, private sector, have made some strides in addressing menstrual health. And I also recognize that much effort has been devoted to product distribution, as many speakers spoke about it. And I think that's really not right, because we all know that for someone to menstruate properly or to manage their periods, there is an interplay of factors that can enable them to menstruate very well. It goes just beyond the products or the pads, as we have as it has been highlighted. There is need to access the accurate information, there is need to have wash facilities, psychosocial support, product choice itself, and also disposal, and the general environment in which we live in as we are menstruating, in our schools, in our communities, in our workplaces, among other areas that we live in. Young people like me and many others across the continent, through their grassroots initiatives, have done some tremendous work in addressing menstrual health. I think we have to acknowledge their efforts in whatever they've done. However, my call is that we have to ensure that there is meaningful engagement, especially in, for example, events like this, where young people have to bring in their realities as well as their expertise, because they are the expertise of their own lived realities of menstrual health. So I want to commend UNFPA, SRO, and African Coalition for having a youthful voice on this as a keynote speaker. I would like to argue that for us to address the entire intersectional menstrual health challenges that are faced by different diverse groups of young people that menstruate, including those in schools, those out of schools, those living with disabilities, the non-binary persons, and those living in humanitarian settings, there is need for a multifaceted approach for all stakeholders, state, non-state actors, grassroots organizations, schools, government, private sector, among others, to ensure that indeed our environments are menstrual friendly. I would like to commend UNFPA Uganda, where I'm participating in this event from, for their continued catalytic efforts in supporting governments through policy frameworks and supporting other initiatives on menstrual health. I think that's a very good, commendable effort that I would like us to keep up with. I therefore call upon governments and all other partners to invest in menstrual health as a development issue and not only as a burden. I appreciate you having me to give this keynote address, and thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Joeria, and all our speakers. What a fantastic way to launch our 2023 symposium, and there is so much more to come.
That's right. But before we continue, let's take a short comfort break. We'll see you back here in 5 minutes for our first session on SRHR and human rights.
Make you to shout.
My name is Olani Maola and I'm an artist. Menstruation to me means a time when I'm really fully feel my femininity. I feel like I'm at the height of my feminine powers. And I feel like if I channel that energy in the right way, then I can actually accomplish quite a lot. And I feel like I'm even more kind of empathetic. I'm even more kind of, I don't know. Yes, I can also be irritable, and all that stuff as well. But I don't know, there is a real softness and a real like depth of feeling that I have when I've got my period. There's everything 100% normal about it. And in fact, it's actually a time that if you can, and if you're not in pain, it's a time to actually enjoy your body. And it's a time to feel what it is to be becoming and to being a woman.
When I was in high school, every month when I started my period, the first 2 days, my parents would literally drop me off at school and I'd just be sick, and around 12 they'd pick me up for 2 days straight. And I've actually winded up in the hospital because of my period pains. So I used to have horrible period pains, and my mom and my grandma would just say it's genetics. So your aunt went through this, you went through this. And I'm just like, guys, I could be dying from something. Can you take this serious? Yeah. I think I would just like to say to all the women out there, get the right research, and when you do see a doctor, especially regarding your period and your reproductive system as a woman, always ask questions, even if it seems like a very dumb question. The fact that you don't have that information means you should get it from somewhere. And another thing is meet your body halfway. Try eat the right food, try be active, do some cardio, do this, even if it's once or twice a week. It makes a difference with your experience as your period and your menstruation.
My name is Kim Winsvogel, and I'm a co-director of FEM Projects. That stands for Freedom of Education Motivates Empowerment. We do workshops in high schools focusing on comprehensive sexual education and sexual and reproductive health and rights. Embracing the period to me means you start to understand it. At school, they try to teach you, but they don't try to teach you the nuances of emotions and of what it really can feel like, the weight of it. Trying to change, the whole red stain or the red thing that comes with period into an empowering thing. I think that we need to get to kids before puberty strikes, before they become awkward about absolutely everything in their lives. Doesn't matter what gender they are. I think that's a way that we can guide the narrative to be more inclusive of different identities and of, different ways of seeing the period. For those that would listen. You need to own the responsibility to unlearn what you were taught, and only then can we move forward.
My name is Ilham Rawat, and I am a freelance writer and researcher. The stigma around menstruation is perpetuated by male power. If anything different happens to a woman that doesn't happen to a man, then it must be wrong, must be dirty. And if you go near a woman that has a period, you're going to get, you're going to catch chronic period or something. And I've just grown up with it being, you hide it, like don't tell anyone you have your period. Women's health is not thought about. We need to have more women in decision-making positions and processes. As you would treat a man and what happens to his body and the sperm in his balls, that's how you should treat a woman and what comes out of her vagina. And I think that just recognizing that will enable decision-making processes to happen in a lot more effective and efficient and respectful way.
Oh my gosh, have you heard what she said? I would have told him. I can't believe it. Oh, what should I do? What should I do? Oh, it's soaking wet.
Pads, tampons, and cups are useful products for those who have their periods. Each product is used to absorb menstrual fluid. A menstrual pad is used by placing a pad on the inside of the underwear, where it can absorb menstrual fluid as it leaves the vagina. Pads come in a variety of sizes, and each pad should only be used once, unless it's a washable or reusable type. It is recommended that a menstrual pad be changed at least every 3 to 4 hours. After a person is done using a pad, they should roll it in toilet paper and discard it in a trash can. Pads should not be flushed down the toilet, as they will clog it. Menstrual cups are for internal use and are inserted inside the vagina. There are instructions inside the box that will explain how to insert a menstrual cup. Cups do not come with an applicator. A person will need to be comfortable touching their vagina in order to effectively insert and remove it. Cups must be changed and cleaned every 12 hours or more during heavy flow. After your monthly cycle, it is recommended you boil it for 20 minutes so it's clean and ready to use again. Cups are reusable from 1 to 10 years. Tampons are for internal use and are inserted inside the vagina. They absorb menstrual fluid as it's being released before it leaves the vagina. Each tampon must be used only once and must be changed every 4 to 6 hours or sooner if it's full. Some tampons come with applicators and some do not. Pick the one you feel most comfortable trying. Tampons also come in different sizes. If it is your first time trying, try slim or thin tampons. The box may say for menstrual flow. Now you're ready for your menstrual cycle.
Sanitary pads! Why didn't I think of this before? That should do the trick. So, till next time, don't forget to visit me at amaze.org.za or go to my YouTube channel to watch more. Bye!
Welcome back. As Stephanie said before the break, we are now going to dive into our first session entitled We Deserve It All, Improving Menstrual Health Through Human Rights-Based Approaches. So without further ado, please welcome our moderator for the session, Mandy Temple, postdoctoral research fellow at the Health Research Unit Zimbabwe and London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Mandy, over to you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. So we're going to jump right into our first session, which is looking at sexual reproductive health rights and human rights. I want to thank everyone for being present, all of our speakers, and we're really hoping that this session will frame the idea of approaching menstrual health integration to sexual reproductive health through a human rights lens. And our session will be started off with an amazing speaker who is Monica Faros, who is the director of UNFPA Geneva. And she's going to give some key messages from the Human Rights Council panel and really frame the kind of discussion that we hope to have in this session. So Monica, over to you.
Yes. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, and thank you, Mandy, for passing me the floor. And I just have to say, you know, first of all, greeting everyone, all protocols observed. But I have to say that I'm really amazed by the quality of the messaging, the quality of the experience that was just shared with us. And I think, you know, I could just say I subscribe to everything you said, because it's been really inspirational. And I do love the title of our session, We Deserve It All, because we really deserve it all. And I'm just going to share with you a couple of key messages, a couple of points that come from the experience of someone who's sitting in Geneva, who's doing human rights, who's doing global health, and trying, you know, to connect all the dots and to show how there's no menstrual health without making sure that it's properly mainstreamed into a human rights conversation, and also to share with you some of the work we did advocating for the resolutions that we have in the Human Rights Council. And of course, we did it with a lot of you who are connected here today. And by the way, congratulations for the wonderful turnover in this panel. So, you know, when we started to do the advocacy for having menstrual health recognized as a human right, we started to produce some advocacy materials. We wanted people to really understand why we were making the point of talking about menstrual health, not only about menstrual hygiene, because we really wanted the shift from what can be perceived as a behavioral issue to a human rights, to a health conversation, because it also removes the burden of who needs to secure the realization of that right. So we wanted this conversation to be broad. So we started to go around and say, you know, menstruation is such a crucial part of reproductive health, you know, and despite the fact that this is a natural and a necessary biological process, truth is menstrual health is often hindered by myths, by misconceptions, by social stigma, and we've heard a lot about that today already. So acknowledging that menstrual health is a fundamental component of sexual reproductive health and rights, of human rights overall, was critical in understanding how this fosters gender equality, women's empowerment, how it's essential to achieve the SDGs. And yet what we thought is that until recently, menstrual health was largely overlooked by the health community, but at least by the sexual reproductive health and rights community. This is why I thought it was very inspiring, this call on menstrual hygiene that I'm going to start to use immediately, on the menstrual justice, and also on the menstrual health literacy. So, you know, we really campaigned that the integration for menstrual health and SRHR as an imperative from a human rights perspective, and that realizing human rights, including sexual and reproductive rights, was also crucial to ensure a safe, a healthy, and a dignified experience of menstruation.
Make sure that the rules that are in place, as you rightly said, POSH committees. So then we talk about whether my school, whether my college.
Okay, so technical pitch. And so we tried to campaign saying, you know, the experience of menstruation can either facilitate or hinder a broad spectrum of human rights. And even yesterday, so we are in Geneva in the middle of the World Health Assembly. And last Monday, I took our amazing executive director, Dr. Natalie Cannon, to an event where again it was highlighted that globally over 1.8 billion people experience menstruation every month. And some of us are experiencing it now. And that 2 in every 3 adolescents around the world have no idea of what's happening to them when they begin menstruation. And it's, for some of us, menstruation may be an inconvenience. We may even not give much thought about it, but for millions of others, this most natural and reproductive cycle functions can equate to abuse. The onset of menstruation, as you know, can signal that a girl is ready for marriage and childbearing, even if she's still a child herself. To stigma, banished to menstruation huts, buried from sharing meals. And we just heard the extraordinary experience of Senator Gloria. Missed opportunities, skipping school because of pain and lack of personal hygiene products, and also loss of dignity and lack of supplies and sanitation. We've heard about humanitarian settings where even basic items like soap and water can be scarce and unavailable. And this is why I have to say that I'm proudly joining the voices of my colleagues from UNFPA that just highlighted the work that we've been doing, reaching out to people who menstruate with education, with sex sanitation facilities, including in displacement camps, with dignity kits containing essential products like soap, menstrual supplies, and underwear, and of course the huge number of kits we are distributing in humanitarian settings as results of conflict or natural disasters. So what we see here in Geneva, and I'm looking at the world from the Human Rights and Global Health Hub, and what we see is that all over the world, the debate is gaining traction. And of course, thanks to the work of individuals, organizations, UN agencies, governments, and coalitions such as the African Coalition on Menstrual Health. And we cannot empathize enough on how vital it is to recognize menstrual health as a key component of the human rights to health and overall human rights. And it's a goal in itself, but it's also a vehicle for a world with more dignity for all. And I have to praise and thank the work of the African Coalition on Menstrual Health and the work that you are doing in advocating for, providing evidence for, and campaigning for this goal. So all your successes are yours, and we are very proud to partner with you. And I'm thinking globally from the viewpoint of a global human rights perspective, resolution the resolution that was tabled in July 2021 on menstrual hygiene management, gender equality, and human rights was pivotal, and we understood it as such. And so the resolution calls for states to ensure that women and girls have access to appropriate facilities, information, and products for optimal and effective menstrual hygiene management. The resolution also mentions that women and girls, including those in vulnerable situations, they have equitable access to affordable, safe, and clean waters, adequate sanitation, hygiene, and washing facilities with soap, including a choice of menstrual hygiene product. Having this written down, adopted by consensus, was huge. The feeling in the room as we did it, as you did it, was this is for all girls, women, and people who menstruate. Done with the taboos, done with the stigma, let's uphold human rights. And of course that you know, and it's been mentioned by the amazing opening panel, that much of these issues, they were already enshrined in many human rights documents and resolutions. And you know, it's in the SDGs, it's been mentioned, it's in SDG 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So it's nothing new that what we are asking for. You know, all the states party to the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, they are obliged to take appropriate measures to reduce school dropouts, to eliminate discrimination against girls that may exacerbate female dropout rates, and of course, menstrual health is it's on top of that priorities. We also know that the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination against Women also requires governments to take appropriate measures to address abusive gender norms, to modify the social and cultural patterns of conduct of men and women with a view to achieve the elimination of prejudice and customary and old practices, which are based in this idea that inferiority of women or superiority of either sexes. So we knew from early moments, or 70 years ago almost, that all these rights, all these approaches were already there. What we really needed was a resolution that brought everything together, that connected the dots, and that affirmed very clearly that menstrual health, human rights, gender equality, they were all connected, and this was really a human right, realizing the human right to water and sanitation, the human right to health, the human right to education, the human right to work. And I have to highlight the tremendous progress we are seeing in some countries that are now even upholding menstrual leaves for women who who have serious pains or cramps or any other process by which they feel they cannot work while they are menstruating. It's a huge progress. I know that we are sometimes focusing on what's left to be achieved, but we also need to celebrate progress because that can inspire others. And of course, among all the human rights, there are enshrined in this right to menstrual health is the right to non-discrimination. As we've mentioned, menstruation is a natural process, but still taboos and stigma around menstruation are rooted in perceptions that menstruation is something dirty, something to be ashamed of and to be hidden. And this reinforces discriminatory practice against women or girls. So we had all this, but this time in the Human Rights Council, it was clearly articulated. We would have wanted the recognition of menstrual health, not only hygiene, but the process was moving. And what we saw was that some of the processes that followed really, completed the journey, as someone was saying in the beginning. So this resolution, and I'm just going to share two points with you. So this resolution requested the Human Rights Council to convene a panel and to discuss menstrual hygiene management, human rights, and gender equality. And it was a panel that was also to address the implementation of states' obligations under the relevant provisions of international human rights law, the ones I just mentioned, all the rights and all the laws that we already have in place, and also to discuss challenges and best practices in this regard. And again, we were really proud to have UNFPA's executive director as one of the keynotes in that high-level panel. And the panel was inspiring, was very evidence-based, which is what we wanted. But for those of you who followed the conversation with us, you saw the level of commitments we got from the floor, from the member states who were in the room. Some of them represented at the highest level. And this is something that we can really use to hold all these state parties accountable, but also to inspire the others who want to go in the same journey, but still have a process to engage in. So leading to that high-level panel, and during the panel, and then after the debate in the Human Rights Council in 2022, we did an intensive campaign of advocacy. We shared evidence-based approaches, and we did it jointly, UNFPA, with the African Coalition. And we collaborated with other stakeholders, and we also promoted an informal engagement on how this collaborative approach could integrate menstrual health as a development and a human rights issue. And you have to understand, this was 2022, that we were just coming out of the COVID restrictions, and we were, I'm sorry to be sharing details, but we were a bit fearful that the turnover would be modest. But again, we were up for a surprise. We had high-level engagement. We had many countries coming to the conversation with us, making specific commitments, and giving a lot of visibility to the issue. And I know that we've heard that many times that visibility is important in this conversation. We did the menstrual health bracelets that tried to start the conversation, and you don't know how many times I'm showing mine, you don't know how many times I've been stopped in meetings, in the street, and people ask me, what is that bracelet that you are wearing? And this allows me to start the conversation on menstruation, a natural conversation, because menstruation is natural. So from that panel and from that follow-up conversation we did, if you understood, we did the resolution, we did the panel debate, but we didn't stop there. We took the networking to the next level. And we think that member states and the other key stakeholders, they really created a common understanding of a human rights-based approach to menstrual health from a normative and an operational perspective, exploring the linkages. And this is what we really wanted, how menstrual health, sexual and reproductive health, and gender equality are interlinked, how they empower themselves, but also how not having access to one of them can have a ripple effect, a negative ripple effect on others. And we think this conversation was really a game changer here in Geneva, if you are talking about human rights, if you are talking about global health. And just to finalize, I know that nothing like this would have been possible if we didn't have coalitions like yours, a coalition that brings together everyone that matters. We have in this panel, we have policymakers, we have legislators, we have the private sector, we have young people, we have civil society organizations, we have UN agencies. And this is an effort that really requires all of us to be included. And the coalition has enabled and contributed to so many successes and progresses. And we know that much more needs to be done. We need to make sure that we include all. As Lydia mentioned, all people involved with situations, transgender and non-binary people, people with disabilities. Don't forget humanitarian context. It's something that we are constantly calling the attention here in Geneva, that we need to gather data and evidence about menstrual health, its connection to global development, and also making all relevant stakeholders understand that even in all settings, be it development setting, be it humanitarian setting, this cannot be an afterthought. This has to be top on the priorities. I was having a conversation with a youth activist a couple of months ago when I was mentioning how UNFPA leads on, for instance, providing contraceptives. And she told me straight to my face, you should be more focused on distributing menstrual health products because sex is optional and having my period is not optional. And I thought, well, this is when it comes to speaking the truth and speaking it bluntly, this is what we are here for. So what we need now, if I may suggest, is we need to create and support a platform for knowledge sharing and advocacy. All your good practices, share them with me. I would be proud to be your spokesperson here at the Human Rights Council, at the World Health Organization, at the UNHCR. I'm doing this because I'm seeing the organizations from where I stand. I would be a proud spokesperson for all your good examples, and I would be delighted to invite you to come and share the examples with us. We need to be innovative in reaching out to classic and new partners. We need to be bold and strong. Maybe, I don't know, maybe find some goodwill ambassadors that can disseminate our findings with new audiences and with a message that can reach all. We have to use technology. Like this video we just saw, it's amazing. It's superbly done, and it's so clear in the messaging. And these platforms, these coalitions, you need a seat at the table where decisions are made, where programs are designed, and where implementation is monitored and evaluated and necessarily corrected. So make sure that the evidence and information that we have helps countries, helps legislators in drafting new laws, new health programs. We need to connect the dots, work in partnership, and acknowledge that despite the contextual differences, we all want the same, and that is dignity, dignity, and more dignity. And we know that dignity equals human rights, and dignity equals health. And in the world, we know how that can be done. Not doing it, it's violating human rights, because the right that is delayed is the right that is denied. Menstrual health is a human right, period. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Monica. I think that was really, really, really important. I think it really frames what the session is about, this sort of integration of menstrual health and SRHR, and understanding that menstruation is not a women's issue, but a human rights issue. So understanding that within a sort of framework, but also what are some practical ways that we can enforce that and make sure that it's not just something we say, but it's something that we practice and something that we do. So our next speaker is Anise Gold-Watts, and she is also going to sort of set the scene and speak a little bit from KPMG about the work that they've done, and really able, I guess, ground us in the work that's happened in the research that they've done. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Mandy, and thank you all for inviting me here today. It's been such an inspiring afternoon, and really, really honored to be here. So my name is Anise Gold-Watts, and I am from KPMG Norway, and I'm here to provide some highlights from a recent technical brief on SRHR and human rights. So using a rapid review scoping methodology, we kind of gathered evidence from the last 5 years, from 2018 to present. And I just wanted to highlight a few of the key points that we discovered in our scoping review. So from this review, we found that evidence suggests that menstrual health fits very well into sexual and reproductive health and rights frameworks. And however, despite the kind of biological connections between menstrual health and reproductive health, menstrual health has somewhat been sidelined or neglected within SRHR programming and services, where menstrual health programs are often implemented separately. Another thing that the literature that emerged from the existing literature is that although equality and non-discrimination are core core human rights, the various needs of people who menstruate, especially key populations, including persons with disabilities, sex workers, transgendered men, incarcerated people, refugees, migrants, people who experience intersecting forms of marginalization and discrimination, have menstrual health-related needs that have remained widely unmet. So this signifies the need for more comprehensive and inclusive policy development, as well as considering that the current policies are often targeting in-school adolescents, which also may be excluding out-of-school adolescents, adult women, and who have changing needs depending on their life cycle. So additionally, this has been mentioned throughout, but we've been seeing a lot in research about stigma, shame, and embarrassment and disgust emerging from personal experiences of women in more qualitative literature. And these have really important implications in terms of women's use of vaginal products and HIV protective behaviors. One study that described this quite well was looking at the use of a monthly vaginal ring for HIV prevention, and in a clinical trial in Malawi, Zimbabwe, Uganda, and South Africa, women reported being uncomfortable using this vaginal ring because of their perceptions, or the ingrained perceptions with menstrual blood, negative perceptions having to do with menstrual blood. Also, the literature described kind of linkages to menstruation, gender-based violence, and child marriage in several different contexts, where studies in Ghana, Kenya, South Sudan, and Tanzania suggested that some girls may resort to engaging in transactional sex to be able to pay for the necessary menstrual products that they need. This leads young women to be more susceptible to unintended pregnancy, gender-based violence, HIV, and other sexually transmitted infections. And then I just wanted to close with one last highlight from this technical, or these two technical briefs, is that menstrual knowledge and education, although some studies have kind of demonstrated that there is a certain extent of menstrual knowledge and education throughout the continent, it also reveals that there are major gaps among girls and other adolescents who menstruate, who have limited knowledge and misconceptions about what menstruation is and means. We were told about this horrific story of a 14-year-old girl in Kenya who committed suicide. And so I think that is a prime example of that. So that is all for me for this session, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anise. That's been really, really insightful and really connects sort of on a practical level for what Monica spoke about earlier. And if I can take a minute to shamelessly plug my own research, I will be speaking directly to this idea of the social and cultural norms that speak to how people choose the kind of products that they use, and also this idea of the integration of menstrual health within SRH research tomorrow. So please tune in tomorrow as well. So I will now introduce our speakers for what will be a roundtable discussion on this understanding of using a human rights approach to the integration of menstrual health within SRHR. We have colleagues that will speak to sort of the legislation aspect, some who will speak to the research, and some who will speak to the advocacy. And these speakers are from all across Africa, and we are very much looking forward to having a really fruitful discussion and learning from their experiences and the work that they've done. Our first speaker is Chengetai Chikomwe from Zimbabwe. We also have Alice Olua, Julia Zamamela, and Nokuzula Ndwandwe. I hope that I've pronounced everyone's names correctly. And we're really going to be talking about using a human rights approach to address HR integration, MH in integration, SRHR. Are all the speakers online? Amazing. Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hello, Mandy. How are you?
Good, thank you. So there are some pointed questions that I'll be asking each speaker. So before you speak, if you could just give a sort of one sentence introduction to who you are and the work that you do, and then you can ask the question and we'll go from there. So given the discussion we've had around this integration of menstrual health into SRHR, and understanding menstrual health as a human rights issue and not just a women's issue, I wonder, in your experience or work, Chengetai, what are some of the structural inequities or inequalities that inform the menstrual experiences of girls and women across Africa?
Thank you so much, Mandy. Basically, adolescent girls across the African continent are still being left behind in realizing and enjoying their sexual reproductive health. So, unpacking the layered and inequalities or marginalized groups of young people in enjoying and experience their safe and unified period. It is also important to really explain what is structural inequality. So basically, structural inequality occurs when the fabric of organizations, institutions, governments, or social networks contains an embedded bias which provides advantages for some members and marginalizes or produces disadvantages for other members. So basically here we are talking about men when it comes to the advantages towards the structural inequalities that are there. So what then informs the structural inequalities? Firstly, we talk of social norms that we have. So a health education and identification and treatment of menstrual disorders will also enable women and girls in Africa and all over the world, basically, to safely and appropriately manage their menstrual health. Yet we have so many inequalities that are around menstrual health in Africa that limit support to menstrual girls, and this results in menstrual health management being a multi-sectoral challenge, especially in terms of the sexual reproductive health and schooling and the education. For example, in an African home, you can honestly tell me that the first talk that you have with your mother, mostly it's about warning you against engaging into sexual activities with boys, because now you are able to get pregnant, rather than really being taught how to be comfortable during this important time of your life. That would be okay monthly. We also have economic challenges. As women, we experience a lot this period of poverty, because women in most African homes, they are really dependent on their male partners. So this then affects their access and the affordability of menstrual health products, as men often see menstrual products as something that is secondary and not really a priority in the household. For example, here in Zimbabwe, some girls in Namawukwe, a village that we work with as Dawa.
Hi, how are you? Good.
Hello?
Sorry, go ahead, Chengetai.
All right, thank you so much, Mandy. I'm seeing messages that people cannot hear properly.
Yeah, go ahead and talk, and I will summarize as far as I can. Yeah. So
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me this opportunity. So structural inequalities occur when organizations, institutions, governments, or social network contains an embedded bias which provides advantages for some members whilst marginalizing other members. Gender-based structural inequality is then embedded of gender inequalities in social structures based on institutionalized concepts of gender differences. So, structural inequalities that then inform menstrual experiences. One will start by social norms. Health education and identification and treatment of menstrual disorders also enable women and girls to safely and appropriately manage their menstrual health. Yet the omnipresent marginalization of menstruation and a lot of social norms in our African society limit the adequate support to menstruating girls, and this results in menstrual health management being a multi-sectoral challenge affecting social and reproductive health and also schooling and education. For example, most adolescent girls in African homes experience their first talk on menstruation is very uncomfortable, where mothers are mostly warning young girls on consequences of having periods and less talk on how to manage it and making it feel comfortable. Boys at school also even make it very uncomfortable for girls by shaming young girls. In our work, you'd realize that most girls never really got to appreciate menstruation, as they are filled with fear, therefore making it so hard for them to experience it in safely and with dignity. There's also an issue on economic challenges. Period poverty is very much experienced in Africa and in places that we work with, especially in rural areas that our work is very much grounded in, since we do grassroots interventions as a CBO. So there's what we call period poverty. In our society, as we know that the African society or the society at large is basically patriarchy, where women are more dependent on men, and men have are economically independent and have control over finances. This consequently results in issues around affordability and access of menstrual health management products like pads, tampons, as men often view menstrual products as the least priority around the household, and this consequently results in girls using unsafe materials for their period. For example, adolescent girls and young women in an area that we once worked with called Mausekwa here in Zimbabwe were using unsafe materials during their menstrual cycle, like cow dung and other materials that are not safe. And these cases point to cases of economically vulnerability of young girl, therefore risking having transactional sex for sanitary pads. There's also an issue in terms of infrastructures in schools and workplaces, where availability of proper infrastructure in school often results in issues around absenteeism, especially for girls who learn in rural areas. In Mashingo, rural areas, most schools have improper structure for girls, and there is also no availability of water around the school for girls to feel safe and comfortable during their menstruation, and this results in girls missing school during those days. Hence, young girls mostly lag behind in terms of schoolwork due to some of these factors. So what can be done? In Zimbabwe, the government has put in place a school health policy which looks into proper support for school to students during their periods. But however, due to the poverty in schools we work with, whom are mostly in the rural areas, there is need for extra support from the government, from the civil society organizations and non-governmental organizations to help in water and sanitation, and even proper infrastructures for young girls to experience their period safely, clean, and with dignity. Parents also need to improve their communication with their children and change the social norms, and this helps in addressing many issues that make menstruation for girls and young women uncomfortable and unsafe.
Thank you so much, Chingitai. Apologies for having to cut off the live feed just because of the connectivity, but I think the pre-recorded video that we just played perfectly summarizes some of the challenges that happen on the ground with the work that happens within menstrual health and the challenges that girls and women face. I think what I'll do is move on to our next speaker, and Alice, and I wanted to ask, given the context of what's been shared, so speaking about period poverty, some of the economic issues that are faced by women, this idea of transactional sex to be able to buy products because products are generally not affordable, the idea that some of the reasons behind the products that are available, the products that we use, are very much bound to our social cultural context and circumstance. I wanted to understand from you, why is it important for menstrual health and sexually reproductive health policies to be informed by research, and how can this best be done? If possible, can you speak to a specific example and maybe talk about your research along the normal trial where we're looking at contraceptive-induced menstrual changes? So, you know, an overview of why you think, how you feel research informs policy, why that's important, but also maybe speaking specifically to an example, which would be the normal trial that you're working on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mandy, and the organizers for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon, this evening. And indeed, it is very important for policies to be informed by research, as we will see in our example, where we worked closely with the government to put together a normal community-based counseling job aid for menstrual bleeding changes that are induced by use of hormonal contraception. So my name is Alice Olao. I work for FHI 360. I'm from Kenya. So the importance of using research to inform policies cannot be overemphasized. First of all, it enhances ownership. And once the government has ownership, then it increases acceptability and utilization. You can imagine if you have policies that are not informed by research, people will not even understand what they are all about. But when people understand, then they're able to use, and it helps us to avoid the white elephant scenarios, or even just having policies put on shelves. And so that means that we will be more effective. The policies will be more effective if they are informed by research. It also then makes the implementation of these policies very, very effective. Why? Because again, they have evidence from the ground. And so policies will then achieve their desired effect. In turn, that will also enable us to effectively use the resources that are available. And in the process, as policies informed by research, then it also gives the opportunity to build the capacity of all those who are involved in putting together the policies. How then can it be done? How can we ensure that our policies are informed by research? One of the most important things is to really work closely with the government. Right from the time that you are going to put this policy together, from the time you're going to start the research, it's important that you reach out and work closely with the government, and you are going to collaborate throughout the process, not just at one point, but throughout the process. So apart from collaboration, it's also important that your research, whichever research you're conducting, And for us, of course, we are talking about menstrual health and we are talking about sexual and reproductive health. It's important that we are aligned to the research that we do are aligned to government policies. In Kenya, within the reproductive health, Ministry of Health, we have what we call a reproductive health agenda. And so you find that most research activities are aligned to that agenda. And so even as you start to consult with the government, you're working together and looking through their research priorities and ensuring that whatever research you're doing is aligned to the agenda. And it's also very important that whatever policy you're working on or whatever research activity you're working on, you take time to review the data that is available that is related to the country. And from that, then you'll be able to identify the gaps that are in place. Remember, you want your policy to be informed by research, and there's no better way than just reviewing the data and making sure that you're responding to the gaps that are in place. And so over the next few slides, I'm going to talk about the normal counseling job aid, which is a community-based counseling tool that is used by community health workers. And my colleague, Emily, will be sharing a link because this was published. And so when putting together this counseling job aids, FHI worked closely with the government, and this was in, as I said, it is important to use data. And so this was in response to data, and that data was showing a lot of those discontinuation in contraceptive use because people did not understand the menstrual changes that were, happening when they started using their hormonal contraceptives. And it is really good that we are talking about menstrual health because this is one area where we can work closely to ensure that we are talking together, talking about menstrual health and the changes that happen when women use contraceptives. Many times there is misconceptions and lack of knowledge about contraceptive-induced menstrual changes, and this may act as a barrier to accessing family planning methods, which are really essential, or family planning services. And it's therefore important that, users and young girls, both women and both older women and young girls, understand that some of these menstrual changes are actually beneficial. For example, if there is reduced bleeding because one has used a contraceptive, then this gives one an opportunity to focus more on other things. It will not prevent them from doing their normal activities. And therefore, it's very important that during counseling, such messages are discussed before a woman decides which method to use. And for the normal counseling job aid, again, it was a collaboration between the government, both at the national level. In Kenya, we have counties at the county level. And it helps the community workers to counsel women on what to expect when they use contraceptives. And so the normal itself, that acronym normal, these are the messages that are emphasized during counseling, and I'll just take us through what they mean. So the N in the normal is a reminder to women that it is normal and it is to have changes in their monthly periods when they start to use hormonal contraceptives. And the O is a reminder that some of these changes, such as lighter bleeding, will enable them to, have strength to do their normal day-to-day activities. And the R in the normal reminds them that when they stop using the contraceptives, their fertility will return to normal immediately, and even their monthly periods will return to normal. And then the M reminds them that the different contraceptive methods have different, they will experience different bleeding changes, and so they will understand and they will be able to choose which then can they cope up with. And the A reminds them that, when they don't see their monthly periods in some instances, it doesn't mean that they're pregnant. It is really a normal thing. And for the L in the normal, they are reminded that should they feel like the changes are limiting their work, then they can discuss with the service providers and doctors what options are there for them to use. And on the normal job aid, the women are also reminded of the different changes that will take place, menstrual changes, and this just helps to prepare them psychologically and help them to choose which of the methods they would rather go for. They are also reminded, taught about their menstrual period pattern, their menstrual cycle. You'll be amazed at how many people do know, how many women might not understand their menstrual cycle. So this also provides an opportunity for them to just be educated on their menstrual cycle. And so as a result of working collaboratively with the government, the normal job aid has been added to our division of reproductive and maternal health package of many documents. It's been added to the self-care guidelines for reproductive health. And currently we have an orientation package where service providers are taught about hormonal IUD, they're taught about injectables. All these methods cause menstrual changes. And so with this, then the service providers are taught about appropriate counseling. And as we roll out hormonal IUD in Kenya, this has also been included in the plan, so that as much as possible, women are educated about the menstrual, menstrual changes that might happen. And so, Dr. Mandy, you see that because of the research that has been involved and because of working closely with the government, this for sure is not going to be a job aid that is going to lie on the shelves. It's going to be a job aid that is constantly going to be used. The community appreciates it, and we will, you see that a number of women will now be counseled appropriately, and that will increase the chance of just having long-term use and reducing discontinuation in contraceptive use. So thank you once again, and I will stop there.
Thank you so much for that presentation. What a wonderful example of research informing advocacy and policy. If we have time at the end, it would be great to understand how you disseminated some of your research findings that then informed the policy changes. But for now, we're going to move on to Julia. Julia, we welcome you, and wanted to find out from you, with the work that you've been doing, how can we collaborate on cost-effective interventions and have young people intervening on projects as either peer educators, community engagement facilitators when it comes to menstrual health, and when it comes to using menstrual health as a gateway to promoting overall good and positive sexually reproductive health outcomes?
Muito obrigada, Mandi, e saudações a todos que nos acompanham. Meu nome é Júlia Zandamela e sou a gestora sênior de impacto social da Big L. E Big L é uma empresa social que trabalha com gestão e higiene menstrual através do empoderamento das raparigas e mulheres, através do designer, produzindo produtos de gestão e higiene menstrual sustentáveis e também educando raparigas e rapazes sobre gestão e higiene menstrual. Antes mesmo de responder à questão, gostaria de trazer um pouco do contexto daquele que é o estado da gestão e higiene menstruação em Moçambique, na qual se baseiam as nossas intervenções. De referir que em Moçambique, para as raparigas, durante o seu período menstrual, elas têm a sua mobilidade, participação social e também religiosa limitada, porque acredita-se que elas de alguma forma estão contaminadas ou estão impuras, então acabam tendo essa limitação. Também existe aqui uma fraca abordagem, tanto escolar, assim como familiar, antes mesmo da sua menarca. Por quê? Porque a escola espera que esse seja um papel que seja realizado no seio familiar, e o seio familiar espera que seja a escola. Então, acaba aqui havendo uma fraca abordagem e, consequentemente, a rapariga não tem informação sobre gestão e higiene menstrual antes mesmo da sua menarca. E este aconselhamento, quando já chega a sua menarca, ele é delegado às matronas e também às suas tias. E cerca de mais de 60% de raparigas, elas nunca ouviram falar sobre menstruação antes de ter a sua menarca e antes da sua puberdade. Estamos a dizer que 1 em cada 10 raparigas falta durante a escola, falta a escola durante o seu período menstrual porque não tem acesso a produtos adequados para a gestão e higiene menstrual, porque tem receio de manchar, não tem um espaço seguro onde ela pode fazer a sua higienização ou descarte do seu material, e também a maioria dos rapazes, eles não conseguem, não sabem que existe aqui uma conexão entre a gestão menstrual e a reprodução. E as raparigas, elas têm vergonha de estar próximo dos rapazes quando elas se encontram no seu período menstrual. E respondendo já à questão, em 2021 e 2022, a Abigail teve a oportunidade de implementar o projeto DREAMS a nível de 8 províncias de Moçambique e 32 distritos, onde basicamente viu-se que houve uma necessidade de uma ação coletiva entre os diferentes atores que trabalham na temática de gestão e higiene menstrual. E foi graças a essa ação coletiva que se criou o Pacote Nacional de Gestão e Higiene Menstrual, que ele foi lançado pelo Ministério da Educação de Moçambique e agora é utilizado a nível nacional. Isso foi importante porque desta forma nós conseguimos desenhar estratégias para poder desenhar o conteúdo que esteja muito mais focado no nosso beneficiário final e também as intervenções desenhar estratégias sobre como melhor intervir para poder beneficiar aquele que é o nosso... Para poder beneficiar o nosso... para melhor beneficiar o nosso beneficiário, digamos assim. Porque o que existe? Às vezes há aqui uma necessidade de protagonismo por parte das organizações, mas quando todos nós unimos esforços, desenhamos melhores estratégias para poder abordar sobre esta temática. E também podemos observar que abordagens que envolvem uma comunidade no seu todo, elas tendem a ser muito mais eficientes. O que me refiro com isso? Refiro a intervenções que não se foquem somente nas raparigas, mas também integrem aos pais, às mães, às matronas, para evitar que haja choques entre a informação que é passada para o beneficiário final e com os seus educadores primários. E nós podemos testar isso quando fizemos a implementação do DREAMS, porque os próprios pais, eles viram a necessidade de se envolver toda a comunidade e não somente focar na rapariga. E também tivemos a chance de recrutar e contratar cerca de 112 mulheres, jovens e adolescentes que foram as facilitadoras distritais responsáveis por disseminar essas mensagens positivas que nos permitiram alcançar mais de 244 mil pessoas ao redor dessas 8 províncias. Estamos a falar aqui técnicos de educação, da saúde, raparigas, rapazes, mães, matronas, diferentes intervenientes. E também sem contar que, fazendo o recrutamento local, tivemos a chance também de poder proporcionar um emprego a essas jovens adolescentes que disseminavam essa informação. E os próprios beneficiários sentiam-se muito mais abertos em interagir sobre esta temática, tendo alguém com quem elas poderiam se relacionar. Ver uma adolescente, eu também posso fazer esse trabalho, eu posso me comunicar, posso também abordar sobre esta temática. E para finalizar, através da criação do Pacote Nacional de Gestão e Higiene Menstrual, nós percebemos ainda mais que saúde menstrual pode sim ser um tópico que serve de entrada para ter conversas sobre saúde sexual e reprodutiva e contribuir para que melhores abordagens, para que este tópico possa ser abordado mais abertamente. Obrigada.
Thank you so much, Julia. Such a wonderful example of the kind of work that you can do within the menstrual health arena and the kind of impact that it can have. I think we're running out of time, so we won't be able to do any question and answer, but I did want to end by getting some, insight from Nokuzula. And my question to you is, given all we've heard and all we've, the kind of research that's happening, how do you perceive society and governments in Africa together with leaders in terms of adopting menstrual health rights and laws? And if someone wants to make sure that the work that they're doing, the advocacy that they're doing, the research that they're getting can really impact and inform policy changes, how do they go about doing that? I know that's a really big question, but I'm going to have a big ask of you and ask if you can answer that within 2 minutes.
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am Nokzola Ndwandwe. I'm the founding director of Team Free Sanitary Pads. I represent over 32 organizations in South Africa. We are a collective and we're currently fighting for the South African government to recognize menstrual health as a human rights issue into bill and into law. In August 26, 2022, last year, just a few months ago, we submitted our petition with over 40,000 signatures and our memorandum to the South African government, which was received and signed by Shoki Shabalala, representative, the Director General from the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. So this is just a demonstration of how our collective action as society, with members of parliament, with government officials, with researchers and academics, with various organizations, working together to push forward for a menstrual health rights law, which means that all over Africa, I think a more crucial thing that we would have to make use of is collective action and synergy and grassroots organizations championing implementation as well as laws into championing laws and policies from a grassroots level, taking into account citizen-based data collection on the ground. What is happening on the ground? What are the beneficiaries saying when it comes to period poverty? What are they saying in terms of the use, the product, period product mix? Is it working for them? Are policies working for them in terms of eradicating period poverty? So going forward, I feel that we need to base all our research as well as our information, as well as pooling of resources and data based on what are the beneficiaries on the ground saying. Are they happy with the current sanitary dignity framework in South Africa? Because we've come to a collective agreement that the sanitary dignity framework is a bit limited, together with government officials, because it caters mainly to school-going learners. What about learners and young girls, as well as other menstruators who are not in school due to affordability issues? So I think these are the various issues that we need to take into account. The fact that what are the realities out there on the ground, over and beyond the research which is conducted, which is evidence-based as well as theory-based. But what is the individual beneficiary in a remote area, in a rural area, saying about the fact that, okay, we've set aside national government expenditure of 157 million, we've scrapped VAT on menstrual products, but is this effective? And these are the things that need to be taken into account when it comes to drafting legislation, when it comes to amending policies, when it comes to amending policies in terms of implementing the menstrual leave with labor laws, that we take into account the fact that menstruation is a natural biological process. However, there are menstrual-related illnesses that organizations, the private sector, need to take into account and need to accommodate women through policy transformation, policy changes in work areas, and also make use of free menstrual products, even at work, because period poverty does not discriminate. Even when women are working, they often cannot afford menstrual products. And also we need quality menstrual products. Like we've recently launched our 8-layer organic dignity, long-lasting inspiration pad, which is held from nature. So we want those type of quality menstrual products in Africa and on the ground as well, because we believe that even though we are fighting period poverty, we need to take into account that quality menstrual products are also implemented. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that we were able to discuss all these different aspects of the integration and using a human rights approach to integrating menstrual health within SRHR. I would definitely encourage all of our speakers to please put in your contact details in the chat so that people can reach out to you with specific questions, especially because we're not able to address those in this session anymore. But just again, to thank you for your time, to thank you for your efforts and for sharing the work and your advice and your guidance. I think a lot of people really, really do care about this issue, and learning from you will allow them to do their work better. I think highlighted in this session is the importance of integration the importance of understanding and recognizing marginalized populations, to look beyond the research and seeing how the research can inform and construct and direct policy and change in communities. And I think the rest of the day, including today and tomorrow, will sort of elaborate on that point as well. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll hand it over back to our MC, Daniel.
Thank you, Mandy, and all the speakers. That was an excellent session. Indeed, menstrual health is not only a women and girls issue, it's a human rights issue. We now continue with our next session entitled Holistic Menstrual Health Interventions in the Education Sector, the Journey Towards Institutionalization and Sustainability. The moderator for this session is Lindiwe Dlamini, Director of Education, Ministry of Education, Eswatini. Lindiwe, take it away.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. Welcome to the education section. I am Lindiwe Dlamini. I'm the director from the Ministry of Education and Training in the Kingdom of Eswatini, and I'm happy to moderate this session that takes a sector-wide approach in reflecting how the formal education sector seeks to improve menstruation in a health and holistic and sustainable way. We will hear examples from the ministries of South Africa, Ministry of Ivory Coast, and Kenya, and also showcase a locally led solution improving menstrual health through bridging formal education and the community-based formal education sector in the rural remote area of Kenya. Then we will show an educational video by UNFPA and the AMAZE project on just one aspect on menstrual health, how it is being taught to young people outside the formal sector. It is hoped that the section will result in a deeper understanding of how evidence-based policy can potentially be adapted in other countries and contexts to improve menstrual health through the education sector for all learners and staff who menstruate. So listeners, please feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and please be mindful that there will be language translation. So please take your time when you are talking. Firstly, I wish to introduce our speakers. That is Mr. Liko Botman from South Africa, the Department of Basic Education, and Dr. Renjini Devaki from MIT Africa, who are going to talk about how the South African government has systematically committed to menstrual health over the recent years. Over to you, Liko.
Thank you so much, Lindiwe, our fellow from the Kingdom of Eswatini. We are very grateful as the Republic of South Africa, the Department of Basic Education, for this opportunity. We were one of the first countries to participate with Days for Girls and UNFPA in the first symposium of 2022, where we really tried to explore some of the possibilities that exist in the South African government for us to be able to institutionalize the efforts that we're making with regard to menstrual hygiene and sanitary dignity in South Africa. And then we realized that we probably, if we wanted to be intentional about government taking a front seat and leadership and ownership of the process, we've got to ensure that all 5 key levers of change in education are activated, that the curriculum is reorganized, teacher development efforts and teacher training efforts are undertaken, learning and teaching support material is provided, and that there is co-curricular programming that takes place for us to be able to institutionalize our effort towards ensuring that there is utmost menstrual hygiene management. And lastly, it is about development of materials such as information and education and communication materials. And as a result, in trying to take the ownership as the country and ensuring that government takes the lead in advancing issues that are meant to address menstrual hygiene management, we then decided as the department that whilst we have activated all of those key levers of change, we've got to develop an instrument or a tool that will guide our schools to be able to assist our menstruators and ensure that menstruation is promoted as a fact of life. We then developed these guidelines that we are willing to share with you this afternoon, which we have developed with Media in Education Trust Africa. Dr. Renjini Devanki is going to be just presenting to you briefly for a couple of minutes about what these guidelines entail and what are some of the proposals that are made in these guidelines. Because in the end, we want to make sure that schools remain positioned and sufficiently empowered to respond to the needs of menstruators at school and to ensure that menstrual hygiene is promoted as a fact of life and that menstruators don't feel out of place when they are at school. So I'm going to give over to Dr. Renjini Devanki, who's then going to take us through to just indicate, colleagues, also that this demonstrates that government on its own is probably not going to be able to achieve this, that there needs to be a partnership between government and civil society for us to be able to advance this agenda. Over to you, Dr. Devanki.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Liko. So I am Renjini Devagi from MIT Africa, South Africa. I'm going to switch off my camera due to network issues, and I am going to start my presentation. So the presentation explores the journey towards institutionalization and sustainability of holistic menstrual health interventions in the education sector. The goal of next slide, please. The goal of the menstrual health intervention is to establish a comprehensive. We are supposed to display this, my presentation. I'm hoping it will be shown soon. So thank you. Next slide, please. Goal of the menstrual health intervention is to establish a comprehensive menstrual health education programs and facilities with a structured framework at all levels of the education system. Also, these menstrual health interventions aim to support the health and well-being of all learners in a sustainable manner. Next slide. Main factors which involved in this journey to achieve sustainability are building awareness and engagement of stakeholders, including learners, teachers, caregivers, and policymakers, strengthening management and coordinating structures at school level to plan and implement structured MHM education and support programs. Example of school structures at school level could be school-based support team, SBST. Creating a safe and healthy school environment that respects the rights, privacy, and dignity of menstruators. Next slide, please. Implementation of a menstrual health guideline is essential for achieving sustainability of effective practices. The guidelines aim to address menstrual health challenges at schools by providing a framework for menstrual health education facilities and services. The purpose of the guideline is to provide education sector stakeholders at all levels with a comprehensive evidence-based resource which can support menstrual health programming. By stakeholders at all levels, we mean national to community levels, including non-government organizations and the private sector. Next, please. Development of menstrual health guideline. Two main studies were conducted in South Africa during the period of 2018 and 2020 to understand the impact of menstruation on school activities. absenteeism, and challenges of menstruating learners. Both female and male learners, along with parents, teachers, school governing body members, and community leaders, social and health workers were included in this particular study. MIT Africa, in collaboration with Match Research Unit, conducted this study. It was a both quantitative and qualitative study in senior primary schools in 3 provinces of South Africa. The provinces were Gauteng, Eastern Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. Study included anonymous survey with learners, sanitation surveys with schools, focus group discussions with learners and parents, in-depth interviews with stakeholders. And the second study was conducted by Herd from University of KwaZulu-Natal. Herd conducted a study almost the same time with the other study, but with secondary school learners in 10 schools in Sedibeng district. They also conducted interviews and focus group discussions with both female and male learners and stakeholders. Next slide, please. We developed a synthesis report of both studies, and 6 main themes were emerged out of this synthesis, and they are providing knowledge and information about menstruation among learners through curriculum. Our study showed that almost a quarter of learners, menstruating girls, had not been given information prior to their first menstrual cycle. Second theme was availability and access of sanitary products. The sanitation survey indicated that free sanitary towel availability varied in provinces. Almost a fifth of the population of our study, the girls said that they used toilet paper for menstruation. Absenteeism related to menstruation. The qualitative interviews highlighted a combination of and overlapping challenges that female learners experienced at school. And some stakeholders and parents also acknowledged that it was common for a girl to miss school because of menstruation. Next is wash and sanitation facilities in managing menstruation. Learners face significant challenges in managing menstruation, including inadequate water and sanitation facilities, lack of separate toilets with locked doors. Next is disposal facilities. Learners would have to take their used pads to home because of lack of disposal facilities. And last one is support from family, school, communities, and stakeholders in managing menstruation. Next slide, please. The main gap identified in the 2 studies are lack of menstrual health guidelines for best practices for schools. The synthesis of 2 studies therefore recommends menstrual health guidelines for schools. Next, please. What menstrual health guideline can do? Guidelines offer evidence-based guidelines for menstrual health education, providing comprehensive and accurate information on menstrual health to empower menstruators with knowledge and understanding. Menstrual product choices, recognizing the importance of diverse menstrual product options and ensuring access to safe and comfortable products. Highlighting the significance of water, sanitation and hygiene and disposal facilities in menstrual health management, promoting access to clean water and sanitation. Next, please. So the expected outcome, implementation of the guidelines. After we implement the guidelines, the expected outcomes will be stakeholders can create a good environment for girls to manage their periods effectively with dignity. By doing so, we can promote inclusivity and reduce stigma. Menstruators can fully participate in their education and reach their full potential. This promotes gender equality and helps unlock their full academic and personal potential. By integrating evidence-based menstrual health education into the curriculum, schools can provide comprehensive knowledge on menstrual health and empowers menstruators with the necessary information to make informed choices and promotes positive and inclusive school environment. Healthcare providers at school can ensure that menstruators receive appropriate care and support. This includes addressing the pain and discomfort related to menstruation. Implementing the guidelines can help break the silence and normalize conversations about menstruation, and this encourages open dialogue within families, schools, and communities, reducing stigma and creating a culture where menstruators feel supported, respected, and free from discrimination. And lastly, by recognizing the importance of menstrual health and incorporating evidence-based guidance into the policies and programs, governments can allocate resources, develop infrastructure, and implement initiatives that promote menstrual equity, ensuring that no one is left behind due to lack of access or information. That's all from me. And finally, we would like to extend our sincere appreciation to the following colleagues for their exceptional teamwork towards the development of menstrual health guideline. Colleagues at the Department of Basic Education, South Africa, Diana Nelson from Days for Girls International, Don Johns from Director of South African Programs at MIT Africa, Chris Ramdas, Senior Manager, South African Programs at MIT Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Liko and Dr. Ranjini, for a very comprehensive way in which the education sector in South Africa is institutionalizing menstrual health. You have provided us with much to think about, as we from different countries are also looking to improve menstrual health within the formal education sector in a sustainable way. But before we move on, I wish to respond that all participants will be getting the presentations that has just been shared. At this point in time now, I'll move to our next speaker. That is, we'll hear from the West and Central Africa region, Mr. Yebo Ban from the Ministry of Education. Mr. Yebo will highlight on the recent evidence related to learners who menstruate and their needs. And we are going to see how these and other findings are impacting on what is happening around us. Now we'd like to invite Mr. Yebo Ban.
Je suis Bani Yeboah de la Côte d'Ivoire. Je participe à ce symposium sur le guide de santé menstruelle mis à disposition en Côte d'Ivoire. Le guide peut se résumer comme suit. C'est un guide qui aborde la puberté et les différentes transformations que subissent les corps des adolescentes, y compris l'apparition des menstrues chez les filles. Le guide revient sur le cycle menstruel de la femme et aborde la toilette de la femme en période de menstrue, ainsi que les tabous qui entourent la menstruation. Il est destiné essentiellement aux adolescentes qui ont besoin des informations sur leur menstruation. Néanmoins, les enseignants peuvent s'en servir pour transmettre les informations vraies aux adolescentes. C'est pourquoi il est intéressant d'intégrer dans les manuels de formation ou d'enseignement afin que les enseignants puissent donner des explications plus claires. Actuellement, en Côte d'Ivoire, le guide de la santé menstruelle est utilisé à travers les clubs scolaires par les pères éducateurs dans leur animation au profit des adolescents. Mais en perspective, l'équipe de l'éducation envisage réviser le programme d'éducation complète à la sexualité pour y intégrer la question de santé menstruelle et d'autres notions sur le GEMS. 2 disciplines sont identifiées, la science de la vie et de la terre et l'éducation aux droits de l'homme et à la citoyenneté. L'équipe envisage faire des livrets de poche pour les adolescentes ultérieurement. Elle envisage également mener un plaidoyer auprès des ministères pour que des infrastructures sensibles aux genre soient construites. Nous avons le problème de disponibilité ou d'indisponibilité de l'eau dans les collèges. Malgré les efforts des communautés et de l'État, des collèges restent encore sans eau ni toilettes appropriées. Pour la mise à disposition des kits de santé menstruelle, c'est avec UNFPA, ONU Femmes et UNICEF que certaines
Hello, colleagues. Our apologies on that one. It looks like we have lost our speaker.
Hello, am I live? Yes. Surprise! It's Maria Bakaruda, CSC Specialist and Disability Focal Point for UNFPA SRO, stepping in for the moderation. We're having some connectivity issues in some of our neighboring countries. You've heard from 3 governments now. Our moderator is from the Kingdom of Eswatini. You've heard from Ivory Coast in the last presentation, and you've heard the great work of the South African government's Department of Education on how to holistically and sustainably address menstrual health in the formal education sector. So what we also know is that the out-of-school young people also need that information and skills and linking to services. So we are now going to turn to another recorded presentation by our esteemed colleague, Buya Mukonzo from Days for Girls, and we'd like to cue up that video.
Hi, my name is Buya Mukonzo. I am the country manager at Days for Girls Kenya. Days for Girls is an international nonprofit that works to advance menstrual equity. Our vision is turning periods into pathways. In my presentation today, I'll talk about how Days for Girls Kenya is innovatively using menstrual health education to advance menstrual equity in Mount Elgon. Among the challenges we noted at the inception of our project is lack of awareness on menstrual health. As an organization, we thought it was important to train the community on menstrual health to keep them with correct and consistent information. And so for a start, we did a TOT workshop that focused on training community leaders from the county commissioner to the local chief to the village elder. And through the TOT workshop, they're able to be taken through the Days for Girls curriculum on menstrual health to deeply understand menstrual health and also to act as ambassadors of menstrual health within their region. This was very helpful because the community leaders bought into the project and were able to see the bigger picture that as a girl is missing school, it's not just a single day of a girl missing school because of menstruation. It's a girl missing out on her future. It's a girl missing out on her career. And so collectively, we decided to tackle this. And so having the local leaders understand and educate the community made our project very accepted because community leaders give directions to community issues. And this also opened up doors for us to train the community, and Days for Girls was positioned as an expert in this space, and the community opened doors to getting trained, to welcoming us, to inviting us to even community events. The community saying, we have a workshop on this date, would you please come and conduct the same training that you did? So it made it community-led and community-owned. Secondly, we focused on training school teachers on menstrual health. This school teachers then served as custodian as menstrual health educators in their schools, and also became the custodians of menstrual health banks that Days for Girls introduced. The third thing that we did was stakeholder engagement forums, and through stakeholder engagement forums, we were able to bring together the different stakeholders in the community, also to undergo the same training. This was very helpful because through training them, we were able to get to a wider audience, and this was done through radio sessions. So breaking down this curriculum, having question and answer sessions, giving the right information as opposed to the stigma that was around, and just clarifying that was very helpful because it put the organization and the community in tune, and we were able to then make menstrual health an issue for open discussion, unlike previously where it was not something that you discuss in the open. I also want to mention that the Community Menstrual Health Pad Production Center that was set up not only produce pads but also act as centers for education and menstrual health, where community leaders, where young people can come and walk in and get access to information that they need and get clarifications that they need. And this is very helpful because it was the first of its kind. So in terms of impact, we've distributed 11,000 kits over the past 2 years. And in addition, we've trained 50,000 men and women on menstrual health. Also, 12 women and men have been employed directly as community menstrual health educators, and this is what they do on a daily basis. And really, the community is in sync in terms of collectively moving forward to advance menstrual health. Nelson Mandela says that education is the greatest weapon to transform the society, and in my experience, the holistic way in which Days for Girls delivered the menstrual health education puts the community in sync and enabled the community to take ownership of mental health and collectively work to advance it. For more information, you can reach me on buya@daysforgirls.org. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you very much for that presentation. A great example of how we're bridging the formal education sector with informal education and working with communities. What you've heard overall in this session is how important the education sector is in providing holistic mental health to young people by providing information and skills through sexuality education and puberty education, through extracurricular initiatives, in the provision or access to menstrual health products and wash facilities, and in linking both school-based and external menstrual health services and other sexual and reproductive health services. We're really out of time. We would love to have played our last video, another animated video from the Amaze Project, but we hope that it will be played in one of the breaks. We thank you all for your participation and hope to continue the conversation, and hope that you did get something good out of those different pillars on how to holistically program for menstrual health in the education sector. On behalf of all the organizers and speakers and presenters, we thank you and continue with the Menstrual Health Symposium 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindiwe, and all the speakers. Really fascinating content. That brings us to the end of proceedings for day one. Thank you to everyone who joined us.
Tomorrow we'll be back with day 2 starting at 1:30. You'll be using the same link as today, and we have an excellent afternoon plan packed with more great speakers and outstanding content. So don't miss out. Have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.
So from Stephanie and myself, goodbye for now.
Okay, so let's see. We have a first aid kit, acne cream, check. Hot water bottle, sweeties or chocolate. Check. And a 10 song, I'm so depressed, playlist. Jane, you're being weird again. What on earth are you preparing for? What? No, I'm getting myself ready. You know, for that time of the month.
One of the physical changes of puberty that a person with a uterus will experience is getting their period as part of what's called the menstrual cycle. This normally happens between the ages of 8 and 13, and for some people, even older. Everyone goes through puberty at the time that's right for their body. Once a person reaches puberty, those with a uterus prepare for eventually making a baby. Once a month, one of your 2 ovaries release a small egg or ovum into the fallopian tubes. The uterus then begins to grow an extra lining in case the egg becomes fertilized with the sperm. When no sperm is there to meet the egg continues to travel down the fallopian tubes and signals to the uterus that the person is not pregnant and the extra lining isn't necessary. The uterus then sheds the lining, which looks like blood through the vagina. This is called menstruation, or getting your period. Menstruation generally occurs every 21 to 35 days and lasts for 2 to 7 days. When people first start menstruating, they may get them more or less often, or may be irregular. Some people refer to their period as that time of the month, omo matsitseng, or ukbaxeshin. The menstrual fluid may be heavy, light, or somewhere in between. PMS stands for premenstrual syndrome and is the term used to describe the physical and emotional symptoms that many of those who menstruate experience 1 to 2 weeks before starting their monthly period. During PMS, you might experience acne, bloating, tiredness, backache, breast soreness, headaches, constipation, diarrhea, food cravings, depression, moodiness, difficulty concentrating, trouble handling stress, and difficulty sleeping. Ish, that's a long list. But don't worry, not everyone experiences these, and most of these symptoms usually disappear when your period begins. During your period, a person might experience menstrual cramps. They may start 1 to 2 days prior to your period and can last 2 to 4 days. Menstrual cramps are the result of uterine contractions. Basically, the uterus tightens and relaxes to release and shed its lining. These contractions can cause jabbing or cramp-like pain in the lower abdomen and the lower back. Over-the-counter medicine and heating pads can help reduce the discomfort caused by cramps. Always ask a parent, caregiver, or health professional before taking any medicine. While some people experience PMS and cramps, others do not. Either is normal. Starting menstruation is part of puberty for those with a uterus. It is normal and is a massive step towards adulthood.
So, till next time, don't forget to visit me at amaze.org.za or go to my YouTube channel to watch more. Bye!
Follow, baby. Oh, if I enter your motor, pim, 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 I could make you to